Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Jon Stewart Destroyed, now accused of real estate fraud. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Jon Stewart is accusing Donald Trump of civil fraud, even though Donald Trump really didn't do anything wrong. A judge in New York City said he did something wrong. And Jon Stewart is trying to defend that judge's ridiculous judgment. At the same time, Jon Stewart did a little bit of overvaluation on his own apartment when he sold an apartment for $17.5 million back in 2014. And the internet is calling out Jon Stewart on his own fraud and his hypocrisy. Coming from the New York Post, Jon Stewart benefited by 829% overvaluation of his New York City home, even as he labels Trump's civil case not victimless. Jon Stewart ranted this week that Donald Trump's civil real estate case overvaluing his properties was not victimless. Yet when it came to his own home, Stewart benefited from a similar inflation. On Monday night, Jon Stewart unpacked Trump's $454 million appeal bond, calling out experts framing the former president's New York civil case as not causing any direct harm to any individual. The Daily Show host rolled a clip of CNN's Laura Coates interviewing Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary, who commented that the ruling didn't go over well with the real estate industry that was now fretting over the possibility of becoming the next target. Because if they can seize Donald Trump's properties, they can seize anyone's properties. They can accuse anyone of this consumer fraud that they used. And the consumer fraud statute, it's to protect consumers. It's not for business to business transactions. Also, Donald Trump was not overvaluing his property, but that's another whole conversation. Donald Trump, that's this guy, didn't even have the opportunity to present his defense to a jury. It all went to one judge. And if that one judge decides, okay, I don't like you, or okay, I sign on to this idea that really people shouldn't own their own property. I'm part of the new movement that says we should have squatters' rights and we should seize people's properties. That's all it takes with this statute. So that's why it's so dangerous, and that's why it should have been stopped. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, you can't allow people to have their property seized based on this consumer fraud protection kind of statute that really is supposed to be regulatory. The damages on a violation of a consumer fraud statute like this one are supposed to be what they call incidental, meaning relatively small or at least related to a consumer's actual financial loss. There was no financial loss. The people that lent Trump the money actually appeared in court and said, we had no problem with this transaction. We got paid back. We were not misled about the interest rates. This is what we were willing to give Trump as an interest rate. He paid it. We were happy with it. So there's really no case here. But Jon Stewart is just trying to protect their narrative. Investors who are serious business people look at this and say, look, I'm not going to put $1 billion or $2 billion into New York State if I have to worry about them not liking my politics and then seizing that investment. They can actually do that if they abuse their laws. They're doing it to Trump right now if they get away with it. Laura Coates responded to Kevin O'Leary by highlighting that Trump was found liable for falsifying business records in the second degree, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, and conspiracy, all due to asset inflation. Kevin O'Leary responded, quote, everything that you just listed off is done by every real estate developer everywhere on earth in every city. This has never been prosecuted. In response, Stewart asked, quote, how is he not mad about overvaluations in the real world? Because they're not victimless crimes, he said. To further his point, Jon Stewart argues that money is not infinite. A loan that goes to the liar doesn't go to someone who's giving a more honest evaluation. So the system becomes incentivized for corruption. Now that's not true at all. Money is way too plentiful. There is not a shortage of money. Banks create the money that they lend. But Stewart would not have a financial expert on to talk about something like this because it wouldn't agree with what Stewart's trying to push. Stewart also contested that failing to declare a higher market value on a property while paying taxes based on a lower assessed value constitutes fraudulent behavior. And this is exactly what Jonathan Stewart did. I don't know why he didn't think people would call him out on it, because he actually exactly did this thing. And it's not illegal behavior. It's not fraudulent behavior. An assessed value for real estate is what you pay taxes based on. The market value fluctuates up and down all the time, but the market value is almost always going to be higher than the assessed value anyway. This is something Stewart does actually personally know, even though he's not a financial expert, because when he sold his property for $17.5 million, he knew what he was paying in taxes, and he knew it wasn't based on $17.5 million or anything near that. Quote, the Attorney General of New York knew that Trump's property values were inflated because when it came time to pay taxes, Trump undervalued the very same property, Stewart added. It was all part of a very specific real estate practice known as lying. And that does sound funny, but it's absolutely not true, and he knows better. It didn't take long, though, for internet sleuths to look into Stewart's own property history, which shows his New York City penthouse sold for 829% more than its assessed value, according to records confirmed by the New York Post. In 2014, Stewart sold his 6,280 square foot Tribeca duplex apartment to financier Parag Pandey for $17.5 million. The property's asking price at the time is not available in listing records. However, according to the 2013 to 2014 assessor records obtained by the New York Post, the property had the estimated market value of only $1.8 million. And with an estimated value at $1.8 million, that's what Jon Stewart was paying taxes based on. So was Jon Stewart committing fraud? Yeah, according to Jon Stewart's rules, he was committing fraud. The actual assessor valuation was even lower at $847,000. And keep in mind, that assessor value that Jon Stewart was paying taxes based on, $847,000, was well below what Jon Stewart paid. Jon Stewart paid $4.5 million for the property in 2005. So Jon Stewart knew his number was below market value. He knew it was below any possible assessed value. But he paid taxes based on $847,000, not $4.5 million in 2005 when he bought the property. If he thought the property was worth less than $4.5 million, why would he have bought it? Records also show that Stewart paid significantly lower property taxes, which were calculated based on that assessor valuation price, precisely what he called Trump out for doing in his Monday monologue. Pandey, who purchased the penthouse from Stewart, then resold the property at nearly a 26% loss, according to The Real Deal, at just over $13 million in 2021. Tim Pool pointed out on Twitter that Stewart was being a hypocrite. Did Jon Stewart commit fraud when he sold his penthouse for $17.5 million? New York listed its market value at $1.8 million and assessed value at around $800,000. Who did he defraud? Tim Pool was shocked. A Twitter user commented, quote, this is right in Letitia James's jurisdiction. I look forward to the grand jury indictment, a user quipped in response to the tweet. But that's the whole point. If she feels like it, yes, she can accuse Jon Stewart of fraud. She can pull him into court, and then he's going to have to defend himself. But with the Donald Trump precedent, they can do this to anyone who's owned property or sold property in New York. Stewart's representatives did not respond to the Post request for comment, but the comedian tweeted Wednesday evening, oh my God, I've been caught doing something not remotely similar to Trump. And then he goes on and starts talking about starting a college or stealing classified documents. They're not talking about that. John, they're talking about the real estate deal where you sold your property clearly above the market price. So the case against Jon Stewart is a lot stronger than the case against Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the New York assessor valuation on Stewart's former penthouse is the exact same citation method and metric that New York Attorney General Letitia James used to value Trump's private and personal properties and then sued him for inflating those assets. Market value is not even considered throughout the case. This includes Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, known as his main residence, which was assessed at only $18 million at the time. Real estate brokers had the property at 50 times or more than that amount. Same for his private 200-acre New York family estate in Westchester, which was assessed between $30 and $56 million. Trump had valued the property known as Seven Springs at $261 million. Because you would think that the value of Trump's property here is worth many, many times that of Jon Stewart's Tribeca place. Jon Stewart's Tribeca place is like 6,000 square feet compared to Trump's 200-acre New York family estate in Westchester. 200 acres. That's quite a bit of property. And the house on it actually looks pretty darn nice. The difference between Stewart and Trump's cases is that a judge ruled that Trump sometimes exaggerated to lenders about how big his properties were, including the square footage of his Trump Tower apartment. Last month, Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron ordered Trump to pay $355 million and temporarily banned him from doing business in the state, relying heavily on the assessed valuations of the properties to determine the ruling. So they're going to judge Trump based on the assessed values of his properties when they are vastly different than the market value. If a bank is loaning money against the value of a property, what the bank cares about is what the value of the property is, the market value, not the assessed value. Jon Stewart knows this. He's made millions of dollars just off that one property deal alone. He also owns other property. Of course, the judge knows this. The attorney general knows this. They're just trying to do anything they can to get Trump. In the meantime, Trump said he's happy to pay the reduced fraud bond amount of $175 million down from $454 million. This is going to get appealed. It's being appealed now. Trump will win this because the findings are absolutely ridiculous, and it creates a precedent that essentially there's no such thing as private property in New York. That's a slight exaggeration, but that's where this is headed. That the state could at any time accuse you of fraud for one thing or another and just seize your property. And why would you want to even be a homeowner in the state of New York when you see how careless they are about private property rights? From the New York Post, Trump says it will be an honor to post a $175 million fraud case bond after appeals court cuts the funds due from $454 million. Donald Trump snagged a last-minute victory on Monday when a state appeals court ruled he could post a drastically reduced bond of $175 million to fight the massive judgment in his civil fraud case. Trump had been under pressure to come up with a nearly $500 million amount due Monday when he was granted an unexpected reprieve from the 5-judge panel. Had Trump failed to fork over the $454 million sum, New York Attorney General Letitia James could have started moving to seize some of his prized properties, but she also was going to go into his cash accounts where he actually was paying his employees and seize that cash. If you seize the cash out of payroll accounts, it would collapse Trump's business. Because it appears that Trump didn't have the cash to put together that bond for the appeal, Letitia James could have just gone in, seized cash right out of his company account, and essentially wiped out those companies. I'm sure Trump had some kind of a backup plan in case that happened, but it's a very difficult thing to get around when someone takes the cash out of your accounts that you use to pay payroll with. The appellate court gave him another 10 days to post a bond for the lower figure, a cut of nearly 62% from the previous amount, and Trump said he could and would pay it. Quote, "It will be my honor to post, and we'll post whatever is necessary, whether it be cash, security, or bond," Trump told reporters as he walked out of a Manhattan courtroom after a hearing in his separate hush-money criminal case. Quote, "I have a lot of cash," he said during a press conference later at his 40 Wall Street building. "We'll put up cash or a bond very quickly. Securities, cash, or bond, whatever it is," Trump told reporters, "but we'll put it up very quickly and we'll win the case." Jon Stewart knew what he was doing when he falsely claimed they were victims to Trump's supposed fraud. There was no fraud. There were no victims. The people that Trump did business with explained, "We were happy to make the loan. It was a market rate that we got for our interest. He paid back all the money." In the case of Jon Stewart never actually paid property taxes based on the value of his property. He paid taxes way below the value of his property. And that's why people are accusing him of fraud, because that's the standard he tried to set for Trump. We'll see if Jon Stewart opens his mouth and tries to pull this again. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.